Hi, this is Adam Olin, CEO of Russell & Spark, a boutique branding and marketing firm. After 25 years in creative agencies, I realized that the very best reviews came from my story training sessions. So I turned them into a keynote, but I didn't know how to break into speaking. I'm so glad I found Laurie-Ann Be in Demand podcast and joined her community of speaking professionals. From book publishing to sales strategies to the details that distinguish true professionals, it's been invaluable. Even if you can't get into her exclusive community calls, you can still listen to the podcast.
Hello, all my Be in Demand listeners, as this is the last show of 2024. And this is that time of the year where we all pause, even just for a moment, to reflect on the journey that we've all been on. As I'm closing out 2024, and I hope that as you are closing out 2024, that you are just thinking about this past year. So I wanted to share some of my big lessons and how I am using them to prepare for a bigger, better 2025, because it's through that reflection that we get to plan, build, and even reach for that next level. So let's do exactly that today. Happy holidays and happy new year to all my Be in Demand listeners. This is Laurie-Ann. I am your host of the Be in Demand show, and you are in the right place if you're a coach, a consultant, a service provider who is looking to leverage speaking opportunities to grow your business, monetize your expertise, and be seen as an expert. So today we are talking all about this past year, and oh my goodness, what a year it has been for myself. First off, I did a lot of traveling. There was something that was on my bucket list, and that was to walk the Camino. And I always thought that I was going to do the whole thing because I thought that was the only way to do it. But then an opportunity arose that I could do a sampling, and that's what I called it. I did a sampling of the Camino to see if I would enjoy doing this. So I walked the last 120 kilometers of the Camino, of the French way, and that's approximately 3 marathons in 6 days. So it was a lot of walking, and I learned a lot of lessons, and I did do an episode about that, just the different things that I learned while walking in silence, walking, without music, or trying not to do too much talking, because I just wanted to take in the experience, and I learned a lot about myself as well. And then I also got the opportunity to travel to Peru. One of the ladies that I walked the Camino with was doing a retreat in Peru, and I decided to say yes. So I really said yes to some pretty extravagant travel is what I'm calling it. Hopping over to Spain to walk the Camino or going down to Peru. These weren't little weekend jaunts. They were a little over a week long. I think the Camino, I was probably gone for about 12 days. And my Peru trip was, about 9 days. But still on either side, is a little bit of jet lag and a little bit of tiredness from travel. And I did learn when I was in Peru that I am susceptible to altitude sickness. So that was a whole adventure in and of itself. And that was obviously right in the beginning of my trip. I went to a number of in-person events. Being back in the audience, I get to observe new styles, new themes, new things that conference organizers, event hosts, that they're trying to do. So I get to see it from the eyes of being a speaker, but also being in the audience and just observing the audience. So I really like to do that as well. And so I got to go to more in-person events, and I've got several that are already on the books for next year. But one of the other things that I want to share with you is the mindset change that I had, especially regarding my podcast. My podcast this year became more of a two-way street involving you, my audience, and bringing you onto the show. I was able to do that with 2 new types of episodes, and that all happened when I reached the 200th episode of my podcast. So it was almost 4 years old, And as soon as I hit 200, I was like, I'm going to do something different. That's when I got a new graphic. The format of the show changed. I didn't have as many guests on my show, but the 2 episodes that I added on Thursday that are the opportunities for my audience to be a part of the show are my speaker breakthrough sessions and the speaker circle. The speaker circle is a mini training. It's a community call. It's a very intimate training. And it's also a great way to network and meet other speakers and also ask me questions about the training right then and there. And that becomes a podcast episode. So if you want more information about that, the link to join that will be down below, but it is speakandstandout.com/community. And the speaker breakthrough session is me coaching you. These are people who are not my clients. These are people who raised their hand and said, yes, I would like to do a speaker breakthrough session. There's something that's holding me back from speaking. I'm not sure how to get started. Is my topic even wanted or of interest by meeting planners? Where would I even start looking to get booked? There are so many different questions that people have asked. And those speaker breakthrough sessions are the odd numbers since 200, the Thursday episodes when you see some of these extra type episodes. And if you would like to participate and say yes to a speaker breakthrough session, remember, you also get to do a shout out for your business. And if you have a podcast, a shout out for your podcast. You can go to speakandstandout.com/SBS for speaker breakthrough session. So that was something else that I changed with my podcast. And because of some of these changes that I made with my podcast, I was able to 4x my downloads. And I went from 1 episode a week to 2 episodes a week. And when I went from 1 to 2 episodes a week, it was so easy. And I think it's because of the mindset change that I had about like, how can I include you, my audience, on the show? One of my bigger lessons was saying yes to having my podcast be my main stage, making it the center of my content universe. And hence some of the changes that I've made in my podcast, and I've really, really enjoyed them. So another win that I had this year is being a better and bigger resource for people. You know, being able to point people in directions, but also being able to make connections. One of my favorite things is to make connections with people. And I always considered a huge compliment when I get invited back to an event, to a stage. And so this past year, what I did was I just kind of like stepped more into my authority, my leadership, and offered, would you like me to introduce you to some of my clients? And of course they say yes. And like, I'll send them an email, like, here are like 4 or 5 different people. Here's what they talk on. What is something that would be of interest to you? And then I make the introduction. And I'm happy to say that 2 of my clients this year were able to speak at the same event that I was speaking at. And this was a paid event. And both of them were put in front of the right audience and were able to have sales calls. And those sales calls turned into clients. So that made me really happy. It's so much so that I've already kind of like set the tone for next year on some of those events. Like, hey, I've already got some people that are lined up, and I'm just kind of like, I'm planting seeds with these meeting planners. So not only am I speaking for them, but I'm also being a great resource because sometimes filling these conferences can be such a task, especially if you're trying to bring in new speakers. So I'd love to know from you, what's one big lesson that you learned in 2024? And how are you going to carry that forward or change it moving into the next year? That's something for you to think about. And I always love to hear from you. So feel free to DM me over on Instagram or LinkedIn, whichever one of those is your main platform. And I would love to hear your answer to that question. And I'm sure I've got one more question that I'm gonna come up with as we're moving on. Talking about goals, one of the things that I do is that I have an app on my phone, and it's really got a lot of different goals, a lot of morning goals that's just part of my morning routine that I need to do, that I enjoy doing. And I use this app so that I stay on track, because one of the things that I know is that numbers don't lie. If you say, well, I mostly do work out at least like 3 or 4 times a week, but then you use an app and you realize, oh, wow, I've only been working out like once to twice a week on a good week. So having something that helps you track, I have always found to be very useful. Habits are everything. They're good habits and there are bad habits, but every habit will determine who you become in the future. So the best thing that any of us can do, and I do this as well, is to ask ourselves, what are the habits that I need to become X? Or what are the habits that I need to do X? For example, the year that I wrote my first book, in order to finish the book by this particular date, who do I have to be? What do I have to do? And, the answer was I had to write every day. I had to write and get it done. I had to find an editor. I had to find my little community of people who would read the book and say, yes, this makes sense. Here's where I have some questions. There were just certain things that I did naturally when I wrote my first book. And I've shared that with a lot of my clients who have gone on to write books as well. But here's one of my bigger goals as I move into the new year, and that is that I want to help more people step onto the stage. One thing that I have learned through my years is that there are so many people with amazing stories, with amazing solutions to problems, and they're sitting in the audience. And I'm literally like banging my fist on the desk here. And I want them to stop waiting, because meeting planners are not mind readers. People that host and run private communities or memberships, they're not mind readers. They don't know that you want to be asked. You have to put yourself out there. You have to let people know that you are available to be hired to speak. So I'd love for you to start just thinking about, what is it that you want to do next year? Even if this past year you set some goals and resolutions and all that jazz, and you feel like, but I didn't do them. What happened? Because I'm guilty of this also, that there were some things that I wanted to do and I didn't do them. Well, why is that? Well, I didn't look at my goals often enough. So that's something that I've been thinking about. How can I change that? So here are some other personal goals that I have and I've already started putting in motion. One is I am setting a very ambitious speaking and podcast guesting for 2025. That goal is very ambitious, is what I'm calling it. And I've already started recording podcast guest appearances that are going to be released in 2025. And as a matter of fact, I have 3 that are booked within the next 2 weeks. So the first half of January. And I wanted to get those on the books because I'm going to be going to PodFest and didn't want people to have to wait until February for me to actually be recording their podcast episodes. I'll also be doing 2 cohorts of in-demand signature speech this year. And if you don't know what that is, this is an 8-week program where you actually will have a finished signature speech that you will be proud to deliver. And you will be confident knowing that it will get you clients and it's your best form of marketing. And also booked on other stages, because meeting planners or whoever your host is going to be talking about you and referring you. And if this is something that you're interested in, if you're finally like 2025, I am going to start speaking, then feel free to book a call with me. You can do that at speakandstandout.com/discovery. That link is down below as well. But if you want to learn more about in-demand signature speech and some of the success that my previous clients have had, you can go to speakandstandout.com/SS, which stands for signature speech. If you have any questions, book the call with me, because this is how I will help you determine if this is the right next step for you in your business. I only want you to be saying yes to this program if it's the right thing for you to do. So I'm not one of those high pressure salespeople. Also, coming up in 2025, I have hired a voice psychologist to work with. This is very exciting. I've seen her speak a couple of times, and I've just been so intrigued by what she does. And so I actually reached out to her and had a sales call with her last week, and we're going to start working together. So stick around. You will be hearing more about that. Also, on a personal side, me and the guy that I work out with, well, 2024, we finally got our act together after working out for so many years. We'd usually just show up at the gym and well, what should we do today? And there was never any game plan. And when 2024 came around, I said, look, we have got to come up with a plan because he had travel, I had travel. We need to know what exactly our workout routine is. And that worked really, really well for both of us. But also, I can say for me personally, because I noticed a huge difference. I got stronger, and I'm really quite pleased about that. But in 2025, I want to build more muscle mass. And that also means that I need to eat more protein. So those are two of my goals, is to lift heavier and also eat more protein. And it also means that I need to eat before I go to the gym. And that's always been something that's been a little hard for me to do since I don't usually eat first thing in the morning. And I'm also going to read more. One particular book that I decided to reread this holiday season is 3 Feet from Gold. And if you haven't read this book, it is the modern day parable of Think and Grow Rich. And as I've been reading this, I've decided that I'm going to reread this next December as well. I don't want to say I want to reread it every single year, but I think it's worth a reread each year. So I'm just setting the sights for this coming December in 2025 that I'm going to reread it again. But I'm going to keep track of the business books that I read. I have a ton of books on my bookshelf, books that I had big intentions of reading, and I've just never read them. And I'm realizing that I need to do my reading in the morning, because if I read later in the day, it's usually the thing that is going to get put aside. And if I read in bed, well, it should be something I need something different to read in bed, because usually I'm just tired by the time I go to bed. I mean, I usually hit a wall and it's all right, it's time for me to go to bed. So what's one of the goals that you have been putting off and you are ready to prioritize in 2025? I would love to hear what you are up to, what you're planning on doing, because if we want next year to be different than this year, well, we have to do something different. It's called action. It's called taking responsibility and doing something different. So I would love to hear, and consider it to be a little bit of accountability. Feel free to share with me what you want to be different. And thank you so much for being with me in 2024. I have got a great lineup of episodes coming in 2025. And if you've got something that you are really interested in hearing more about, then feel free to DM me. Let me know what it is that you are looking for. If I've got a previous episode, I will share that with you. Or if I don't have an episode on that, I will be sure to record one. And as we move into 2025, remember, every step that you take, no matter how small, gets you closer to your big dreams, to that finish line. And remember that ambition paired with discipline means that you will become unstoppable. If one of your goals is to step into public speaking and grow your visibility and authority, I'd love to help you make that happen. So let's make 2025 the year that your voice is heard. Feel free to book that call at speakandstandout.com/discovery. And that link is down below. And until next time, be in demand. Are you tired of hearing crickets on social media? Wondering where to get seen by the right people? Or frustrated with the growth of your business? Then the Speaker Breakthrough Session is just for you. During this free 20-minute discovery call, I'll help you recognize where you're leaving money and opportunity on the table. You'll walk away with tips and a strategy to leverage speaking opportunities to get positioned as the expert, visible to the right people, and monetize your expertise. Book your call at speakandstandout.com/SBS for speaker breakthrough session.